The inmate, who stood over 2 meters tall, stepped directly in Mike Tyson's path, blocking the entire cafeteria line. His enormous bulk cast a shadow over Mike's tray, and his eyes conveyed the kind of cold calculation that comes from years of controlling men through fear. The cafeteria fell silent. Forks stopped moving. Conversations were cut short, mid-sentence. Every inmate in the room stopped eating to see what would happen when the former world heavyweight champion met the man in charge of food in that place. But before we get to that moment, if you're enjoying these unknown stories about Mike Tyson, like and subscribe. We post new videos every day. Don't miss them. Now, to understand how a confrontation over a tray of food became a prison legend, we have to go back to the beginning. April 1992. Mike Tyson had been serving his sentence at the Indiana Youth Center for a week. He was 25 years old, the former undisputed world heavyweight champion, and now inmate number 922335. The cafeteria was a huge room with long metal tables bolted to the concrete floor, constantly flickering fluorescent lights, and the perpetual smell of industrial cleaner mixed with whatever was being served that day. This was not a place where fame meant anything. It was a place where survival meant understanding the invisible rules that governed every interaction. Mike had kept his head down. That was what Officer Patterson had told him during his intake. This place isn't like the outside. Keep your head down, don't get involved, and you'll get through it. Mike had taken that advice very seriously. He had spent his first week observing, learning the rhythms of the place, understanding who ran what and where the boundaries were. He woke up at 5:30 a.m., worked his shift in the laundry room, exercised in his cell, and read at night. He tried to be a different person than the one who had gotten him there. Cus D'Amato had taught him discipline, to control the anger that had marked much of his life. Prison was going to be his test. But there were men in that place who saw Mike Tyson's arrival as an opportunity. His name was Marcus "Tank" Williams, and he was 28 years old. Tank was 6'5" and weighed 280 pounds with the kind of bulk you get after a decade of lifting weights in prison, combined with the natural size of someone who had been a college linebacker before everything went wrong. His arms were covered in tattoos, dark ink that told stories of gang affiliations and years in the system. His face had the hardened look of someone who had survived things most people couldn't imagine. A scar ran from his left eyebrow to his jaw, a reminder of a knife fight he had won 3 years earlier. He had been in the system for 9 years, serving a 25-year sentence for armed robbery and aggravated assault. In that time, he had built a network that controlled one of the prison's most valuable commodities: food. The cafeteria business was simple but effective. Tank and his gang decided who got the good trays and who got the leftovers. Want an extra serving? Pay up. Want to avoid the mysterious meat that had sickened half the block the month before? Pay up. Cigarettes, store items, favors. Tank turned everything into power, and when new inmates arrived, especially high-profile ones, Tank made it clear from day one: either you worked with him or you went hungry. Mike had noticed Tank during his first few meals. The big guy would walk around the cafeteria, stop at certain tables, and collect what looked like a tribute. Some inmates gave him cigarettes, others gave him part of their food. No one refused. Mike had decided to sit alone, eat what he was given, and not make eye contact. He tried to go unnoticed. That changed on the 7th day. Mike was walking through the lunch line, tray in hand, when Tank appeared beside him. It was impossible to ignore the big man's presence. He took up so much space that he demanded attention. "Mike Tyson," Tank said in a deep, gravelly voice. "We need to talk about how things work around here." Mike kept his eyes straight ahead and accepted a scoop of what might have been mashed potatoes from the server. "I'm just trying to get my lunch, man." Tank moved closer, blocking Mike's path in line. "That's what I mean. You see, lunch isn't free in this place. At least not good lunch. If you want to eat well, work with me. It's that simple. Mike looked at him for the first time. Tank was taller, more heavyset, and had that kind of institutional confidence that comes from never having been challenged. I appreciate you telling me that, Mike said cautiously. But I'm fine with whatever they give me. I'm not looking for anything special. Tank clenched his jaw. Around them, other inmates were beginning to notice the interaction. The line behind Mike had stopped. You don't seem to understand. This isn't a request, champ. Everyone pays. You're not special just because you were someone important outside. Mike felt the familiar heat rising in his chest, the anger Cus had taught him to recognize and control. He breathed slowly. I understand you, man. I respect what you do, but I'm not going to pay for food that's already mine. I'll eat what they give me, and that way we won't have any problems. We already have a problem, Tank said, raising his voice. More inmates turned to look. It was turning into a spectacle, and in prison, spectacles meant changes in the power dynamic. You think being a heavyweight champion means you can ignore how things work? You think you're better than everyone else here? Mike set his tray down on the metal counter. His voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath it. I don't think I'm better than anyone. I'm just trying to serve my sentence quietly. I respect you, Tank, but I'm not going to let you disrespect me either. The cafeteria had fallen completely silent. Even the waiters had stopped moving. Everyone was watching to see what Tank would do. The big man had built his reputation on moments like this, setting an example for those who didn't follow the rules. If he gave in to Mike Tyson in front of the entire cafeteria, his entire operation would collapse. Tank leaned toward him and lowered his voice to a whisper that everyone strained to hear. Last chance, champ. Either you pay up, or you'll learn the hard way that your punches are useless when you're asleep. Mike looked at him. He really looked at him. And something inside Mike changed. That was when Mike had to decide what kind of man he was going to be in that place. Before we continue with what happened next, leave your comments below. What would you do in Mike's situation? Pay to avoid trouble or stand your ground no matter what? Now, back to the story. Mike had a decision to make. He could pay Tank, make things easy, and spend the next 6 years paying tribute to the man who controlled the coffee shop. It would be the smart decision, the safe decision. Or he could refuse, stand his ground, and accept the consequences that would result from that decision. But there was a third option, one that Cus D'Amato had taught him years ago when he was just a kid from Brownsville who thought fighting meant anger and violence. Discipline, Cus used to say, is not about never fighting. It's about choosing when to fight and when to find another solution. The mark of a truly powerful man is knowing the difference. Mike took a step back, creating distance. His hands remained at his sides. Tank, he said quietly, I don't want your job. I don't want to run anything here. I just want to serve my time and go home. But I'm not going to pay you for food that's already mine, and I'm not going to live the next 6 years under anyone's thumb. So, here's what I'm offering you. You let me eat in peace, I won't get involved in your business, and we'll both come out of this with our respect intact. For a moment, just a moment, Mike saw something flash in Tank's eyes. Maybe respect, maybe consideration, maybe the realization that this wasn't going to turn out the way these things usually did. But Tank had an audience, and in prison, the audience is everything. You think this is a negotiation? Tank said, raising his voice again. He reached out and pushed Mike's tray off the bar. It crashed to the floor, mashed potatoes and mysterious meat scattering across the concrete. You can't make offers here, champ. You're nobody. The cafeteria erupted in reactions, exclamations, shouts, the sound of men shifting to get a better view. The perimeter guards began to advance, but they weren't fast enough for what happened next. Mike moved. His right hand shot out, faster than anyone could process. A short, compact hook that covered about 8 inches of distance, all the power generated from his legs and torso, not from his arm. It hit Tank's jaw at the perfect angle, the same angle Mike had used to knock out Trevor Berbick and become the youngest heavyweight champion in history. Crack. Tank's eyes rolled back. His knees buckled. 120 kilos plummeted, unconscious before hitting the concrete floor. The sound of his body hitting the floor echoed through the cafeteria. Thud. The entire room held its breath in unison. Mike stood there, his hands still raised, breathing calmly. He looked down at Tank's unconscious body and then slowly lowered his hand. The whole thing had taken maybe 2 seconds, from the shove to the punch to the collapse. Guards rushed in, radios crackling and orders shouted. Inmates dispersed from the immediate area, though no one strayed far. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Tank's gang stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene. Mike didn't move. He stood there, calm, waiting for the guards to reach him. Officer Patterson was the first to arrive, the same guard who had given Mike advice during intake. He looked at Mike, looked at Tank's unconscious body, looked at the crowd of witnesses. "What happened here?" Before Mike could answer, an inmate 3 tables away shouted, "He tripped, officer. The big guy lost his balance and hit his head when he fell." Another voice joined in. "Yeah, I saw it too. He was backing up, tripped over something, and fell hard." A third inmate. "He definitely tripped. We all saw it." Officer Patterson looked around the cafeteria. All the inmates nodded. Even members of Tank's own gang backed up the story. The guard looked at Mike, who said nothing, just stood there with his hands in plain view, showing no threatening attitude. "All right," Patterson said slowly. "Tyson, come with me. Medics, someone go check on Williams." Mike was taken to solitary confinement, the usual procedure after any physical altercation. He was questioned for 3 hours, but Mike stuck to a simplified version of the truth. Tank had been aggressive, had thrown the tray, and had apparently lost his balance. With no evidence to contradict dozens of witnesses, there was nothing they could do. Mike spent 1 night in isolation and returned to the general population the next morning. But something had changed. 3 days later, Tank was transferred to protective custody at his own request. Without him, his entire food business collapsed within a week. The gang members who had backed him scattered and sought new alliances. The cafeteria was just a cafeteria again. No one controlled the food anymore. No one collected tribute. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. As for Mike, the change was more subtle, but more profound. The inmates who had been testing him, watching him, looking for his weaknesses, stopped doing so. When he walked through the yard, the men nodded to him with genuine respect, not fear. When he sat down to eat, no one bothered him, but not because they were afraid, because they understood that Mike Tyson wasn't there to dominate anyone. He wasn't there to build an empire or prove anything. He was just trying to serve his sentence with dignity. A veteran named Jimmy, who had been there for 20 years, sat down next to Mike a few weeks later during lunch. "You know," Jimmy said quietly, "what you did with Tank wasn't just about the punch. It was to show everyone here that there's another way to be strong." Mike didn't respond right away. He was thinking about Cus, about all those lessons in the gym in Catskill, New York. Cus used to say, quote 1, Mike thought about that often during the rest of his sentence. He had come to prison thinking he had to become someone new, someone completely different from the fighter who had dominated the ring. But what he learned was more nuanced. The power that had made him a champion, the discipline, the control, the ability to read an opponent and respond with precision, was not something he should abandon. It was something he should direct differently. Mike came to understand that true power was not about how hard you could hit or how much fear you could instill. It was about having the strength to choose restraint when all your instincts were screaming for violence. It was about giving respect even to those who didn't deserve it, because respect said more about who you were than who they were. Most importantly, it was about understanding that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away, But other times, the strongest thing you can do is stand your ground and show someone you're not going to budge. Tank had ruled through domination, and domination only lasts until someone bigger and stronger comes along. Mike earned respect by showing that he didn't need to dominate anyone to be powerful. The cafeteria incident became a story that was told for years throughout the Indiana Youth Center. Not because Mike Tyson knocked someone out. Anyone who knew boxing knew he could do that. But because of how he handled it. The restraint, the attempts at peace, the clear line he drew and the precision with which he enforced it when it was crossed. Cus D'Amato had been right all along. True power is not about never showing strength. It's about choosing when and how to show it, and having the wisdom to know the difference.